Hey gang, review time. We're going to be looking at this knife. This is the Spyderco Centofante 3. And this is like a little, not a little, but it's a everyday carry type knife that has definitely got more of a gentleman's aesthetic to it. Gentleman knives, I know it's a bit of a wanky term, but it's kind of a knife that you might feel more at home taking out with you if you're going to like a wedding or, you know, somewhere where you had to wear nicer clothes. They're generally not as hard use. I mean, they're still very well made, but not for your paramilitary tool or your, you know, cold steel triad-lock type tasks. It's one of those fuzzy defined things, but I think you probably know what I'm talking about if you're a consumer of knife-related literature like I am. What I'll do is I'll just go into the basics about the knife. That includes specs and all that business. Then I'll tell you what I like and what I don't like about the knife. Alright? So what you get on the Centofante 3, you get a 3-inch blade, you get 2.4 ounces, which is about 70-ish grams. You get VG10 steel, you get a 2mm thick blade, you get a hollow grind on that blade, you get an FRN handle. Yes, that is FRN. It does look a little bit different to your normal FRN. It's kind of finished a bit nicer. And you get a lockback mechanism with a single steel liner, which is on the clip side of the handle. So this was designed by a guy called Frank Centofante. He used to be president of the Knife Making Guild. He's just one of those men about town, was rather, one of those men about town in the blade knife industry in America. And as I said, its purpose is kind of like an easily carried, disappears in the pocket, formal type carry knife, although it's perfectly capable for your standard everyday carry use as well. So apart from with the lock and the blade and all that sort of thing, I guess the other real notable feature on this knife is the palladium silver Spyderco emblem. Kind of adds that extra touch of class. Palladium silver is like a type of silver. I guess makes it seem a little bit more special to have something like that on the knife just as a finishing touch. So what do I like about this knife? Well, I like that it is supremely thin and slicey. This is one of the sharpest blades that I've had come out of the factory, and it has stayed very sharp as well. The VG10 is performing as you would expect, going sort of, you know, mid-length edge holding. You can watch my previous edge cutting test videos if you've been following them. You'll see it does about 70 cuts of that thicker rope, and this is well online to be about there. The thin grind makes it cut really, really definitively and really, really nice and cleanly as well. That hollow grind behind it, there's not a great deal behind the edge. Make really fine, good cuts. All your kind of everyday carry tasks. Goes fine with food prep, with opening Zooper Doopers, with cutting rope, cutting cardboard, all that sort of stuff. Really, really good. This is a really comfortable knife as well. So it's really comfortable when it's open and it's in your hand. Very, very basic handle pattern there, you can see. Can't really go too far wrong. The only things they could have screwed up was having a rough clip, which it doesn't. It's a good clip. It's comfortable to handle. And perhaps putting jimping or sharp edges. But as you can see around the sides of the knife, all the edges are rather chamfered. So it's really, really good. Very, very nice neutral grip. My favourite type of grips. I think it's really well designed in general, just a general sense. Because what they've done is they've used lower cost materials, but they've presented them in a really classy way. So they've used VG10 steel, which, you know, is a lower cost steel, but it's really nicely finished on a very sort of interesting and unique looking blade shape. And then they've used FRN and they've finished it in the way that it looks like it could almost be aluminium. It's done really well. And a little addition of a palladium core. Palladium core, I'm thinking of Iron Man. Palladium silver, little spider there, makes what is really quite a basic materials knife look like a pretty classy little blade. It's got a really good pocket clip. While I was on the pocket clip, that's another thing I like about the knife. It's not super deep carry. You can see, I'll just show some footage of it in the pocket. Not super deep carry, a little bit sticks out, but because it's a black clip on a black knife, it's pretty muted in the pocket, so I'm happy enough with that, and it grabs onto the seams really, really well. And it's got a really good build quality, which includes good solid lockup, it's got good construction, it's got a really good factory edge. There's really no major problems you can see when you look over the knife really, really carefully. It all looks really, really nice. So some things that I'm neutral on. So in general, VG10 is never going to be. I'm not really ever going to be saying it's a great steel unless you're only paying, say sub $70 for the knife. For $110 plus shipping is what you pay for this. It's about on par, so it's just neutral, not good, not bad. It's bad when you pay $200 for a VG10 knife, say from SOG or from one of Spyderco's more niche knives. But VG10 just neutral on that. It's not left-handed carry, so it's kind of got this unevenness to it where this has definitely been built as the clip side and this has definitely been built as the display side. So unless they were, made it reversible or made it custom order, lefties might be a little bit gypped, but then really I'm only keeping this as a neutral point because the spider hole does make it pretty ambidextrous as well as the lockback. So yeah, actual holding and opening, pretty ambidextrous really. Hollow grind's going to be a bit more frail and probably does limit this knife a little bit more because it's so thin. Limit this knife a little bit more than say the Delica, which is, kind of your dual multitasker knife. And then the fails, the things I'm not super fond of. This knife is definitely a two-handed closing knife. It opens really, really well with one hand. It really does fly out there. No problems at all, but when it comes to closing, this doesn't have any of the protections that, say, knives like the Delica have. So the Delica here has this hump here, which means you can flick it shut because this hump combined with the non-sharpened blade tang forms a little bit that you can flick shut and then just push back with one hand. So safe to do. The Spyderco Centofanti doesn't have any of those features, and it doesn't really have anything protecting your hand from flying up onto the knife as well. So definitely a two-handed closer, and it's not the be-all and end-all of safe knives to use either. It's not unsafe, but just something that you can't treat like it. If you went from a Delica to this, you'd need to kind of check yourself before you wrecked yourself. The pinned construction, kind of an issue with people who like to self-service their knives, take them apart, see how they work. You can't do that with this one. All those pins mean that you are stuck with it how Spyderco sends it to you. If there's an issue, send it back to Spyderco. So it might be a bother for someone. And it also just means basically if you were, again, limiting its use, if you were to take it out, say camping or something, you got it full of sand, it's going to be really hard to ever get that sand out because you can't take it apart. Plus the fact lockbacks generally require backspaces. So that means if it was full of something, you'd be relying on blasting compressed air in there, WD-40 or whatnot, to clean the knife out. So not super thrilled with that. The spider hole on this knife is a little bit too small. The Delica's is the right size. Let's try and compare these two here. So the Delica's in my mind is the right size. And I know it's just a matter of millimeters, but it does matter when you're sticking your thumb in there a fair few times and swiveling around on it. It's just that extra millimeter that makes it a little bit more comfortable to open. So it's one thing I wouldn't have minded if they just enlarged it a little bit and perhaps got rid of this stuff here or just minimized it a little bit, which is kind of leading into my next point. On a knife that is really, never, because of other limitations that I've spoke about, was never going to be for super hard use, I think they've gone and put jimping that's just a tad too aggressive on the back there. Even just the ramp would be fine, because what this jimping does is, if you like to carry your knives tipped down, when you have it in your pocket this way, this jimping in this hump is actually a bit of an abrasive to put your hand past to get whatever else is in your pocket. So just something to think about there. So if it's on, say if it's hanging in your pocket this way, which it would do, you're going to be reaching past this to get things into your keys because your pocket seam will be here because you can't reverse the scale. So just probably the main thing that stuck out to me straight away, I put it in my pocket, reached in, okay, this is definitely a tip down carry knife is how I was thinking. And just one other thing that I'm never too thrilled on is when you close the knife and the tang doesn't go all the way into the handle, there's just this exposed bit. Because sometimes it can fish your keys out when you pull your keys out, and I've had it grab my keys and throw them out of my pocket as I pulled it out. Not on this knife, but on this knife or the previous Delica I had. So now I keep my keys in the other pocket to my knife. So, I mean, that's easily fixed, but there you go. While I've got the Delica out, let's just do some size comparisons. This is very similar in size to the Delica. I would say the purpose is a little bit different. I'd say the Delica is definitely more of a dual type knife. That full flat grind, the slightly thicker blade. Delica is not a thick blade by any stretch, but it is thicker than the Cento 3. Makes it a little bit more versatile for sort of any other kind of use. So we've got those two there. Let's grab out Paramilitary 2, put that on top. So that's a sort of a size up from the Centofanti. Don't let the perspective fool you. It is a lot bigger and a lot thicker. The Ontario knife Rat number 1. Again, that same sort of definite couple steps up in terms of size. And the Benchmade 940, just above there, only a little bit longer, very, very similar. It's kind of like similar purpose knife, I think, to the Benchmade, although the Benchmade is a little bit more of a hard user due to its grind and shape, but it's very thin, low profile carry. As in, it doesn't take up, and this is another good thing about this, doesn't take up too much sideways room, which is great for a Spyderco. Sorry guys, my camera cut out that last little final thought. I was saying it just doesn't seem to get enough credit. I kind of almost thought it was discontinued because you don't really see, hear, read much about it, but it's a really good knife and I don't think it's going anywhere because having it in hand, it's definitely pretty unique in the Spyderco range. I think it's a lower cost sort of fancy carry knife that does really well for the finer tasks due to its really thin, really slicey blade. But as long as you know its limitations and don't take it out, you know, into the bush or into anywhere it's going to get filled with dirt with that pin construction, or using it against any super abrasive materials, you wouldn't want to be cutting carpet with it because that VG10 will wear out on you pretty quickly. But overall, if you know what it's for, I think it's executed really well for that role of an everyday carry knife, light use, or a formal carry knife for, you know, formal use, if that is such a thing. Alright, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.